check Lady Marche studio.
I got text messages where I actually come off.
You didn't tell me that.
It mentions
Here.
The dog got a heart murmur. Welcome back to Stormy Daez, the podcast. There's always a storm in the internet, and today is Transgender Day of Remembrance. And today we remember all the beautiful souls who are no longer here with us today. Today is November 20th, 2021, and we celebrate Transgender Day of Remembrance. Hello, good evening, Raven MQ.
Good evening, Storm, and it truly is something to celebrate. The typical life of a trans woman is 35 years of age. So I've passed that. I'm 45. I feel very lucky and blessed to be here.
Likewise, I piggyback off what you're saying. The life expectancy is 35. So technically, in the trans community, you are a senior citizen and I'm in midlife crisis. It's crazy that that's our realistic life, that we are only expected to live to the age of 35. I mean, that's someone's prime, you're entering your, exciting career life, marriage, children, etc. I can't even believe that is the typical life expectancy for a trans person. What do you think when you hear that your life expectancy as a person of trans experience is up to the age of 35?
Sadly, I understand, because it's a segment of the population that is oftentimes considered to be on the fringe of society. It's not necessarily the norm. And I think that between the domestic violence crimes and sex work crimes and the disease and drug addiction and people who are not close to their family and friends in a lot of instances, I think that it contributes to it. And I think that the murders are just unbelievable of amounts of people murdered in our population.
It's very, 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 very scary. I feel very fortunate that I, work and have been able to navigate through society where some people can only come out at night, not even just here in our country, but in other countries. They're forced to navigate their world in almost secret, and that must be hard. It's very, very scary, but today we celebrate those people. Today is Transgender Day of Remembrance. And again, today is November 20th, 2021. We remember the souls whom were lost. Today, we remember our sisters and brothers of trans experience whom have lost their souls. Recently, earlier today, a statement from US President Biden. President Biden issued a solemn statement Saturday to mark Transgender Day of Remembrance. This year in the USA, at least 46 transgender individuals in this country and hundreds more around the world were killed in horrifying acts of violence. Each of these lives was precious. Each of them deserved freedom, justice, and joy, Biden stated. Today, on Transgender Day of Remembrance, we mourn those we lost in the deadliest year on record for transgender Americans, 46 lives. I just hearing that, it bothers me to know that people could be so, careless and just, it's just really, really sad. Disproportionately, Black and brown transgender women and girls who face brutal violence, discrimination, and harassment. The president also urged lawmakers to pass the long-stalled Equality Act that would amend the 1964 Civil Rights Act to formally prohibit discrimination on the basis of sex. I wonder what's keeping that law from being passed. It's a law that's definitely needed. I will be honest, I have experienced inequality as a person of trans experience in work and life, more so definitely in work. It's just really scary. Raven MQ, have you ever experienced any inequality as a trans individual?
Well, of course, I would have to live this life. I think it's a very difficult life, and I think that there's a lot of different aspects to it. The fact that it's such a taboo, the fact that it makes other people feel a way about themselves, like in particular, men who would deal with trans women and they would leave us in a position to be abused, or who frequent trans sex workers and don't consider them valuable or consider them. I mean, I think a lot of people that thrill kill are looking for a victim that wouldn't be missed, or that their family and friends might not report it, or the police might not be as inspired to solve that case. A lot of the things go unsolved because I think that it's not a priority, unfortunately.
Wow. Well, Raven MQ, worldwide, 375 transgender people were killed this year, 2021, a figure that has risen since last year's total of 350 worldwide. The report authors say this makes 2021 the deadliest year of violence against gender diverse people since records began. 1 in 4 of those murdered were killed in their own home. The majority of the murders happened in Central and South America, about 70%. But like last few years, the most deaths in a single country occurred in Brazil, totaling 33% of the global deaths. Over
Well,
half.
it's a patriarchal society where a lot of machismo is involved, with people who feel that the man is in control, and anything less than that is, it's not good.
Wow. Over half, about 58% of those murdered were sex workers. Now, these numbers are just a small glimpse of the reality that trans individuals go through. Now, let's piggyback. Over half, about 58% of those murdered were sex workers. Now, why I just do you think that if they legalize sex work, do you think that maybe these murders would possibly be less? Do you think that it doesn't matter? Do you think that sex workers in the trans community are being targeted? Do you think that, I mean, I'm trying to figure out in a way why that number in that industry is so high.
Well, I think there's a difference between legalization and decriminalization. And I think that it's more of trans sex workers might be targeted because, well, like I said, if it's a person trying to kill people, they might go for a victim that they feel wouldn't be missed by their family, or it wouldn't be reported anytime soon. Or if they assume that the person's a drug addict or a sex worker, they aren't deemed as valuable, unfortunately, as maybe the average person. And I also think that our definition of what it means to be trans is being expanded, and that envelope is being pushed. And so it's a lot of different things to it that people aren't as cool with as we might like them to be.
I definitely think that we are expanding in a much broader identity world where, traditionally, I'm not even really 100% familiar with the word transgender, because as you and I started our transitions, that there was no such thing as that. It was transsexual. You were either pre-op transsexual or post-op transsexual, and now you have gender non-conforming, gender queer, gender fluid, gender non-binary, and there's so many different identities, and it could be very much just overwhelming to the general population, where traditionally it was just male and female. This is very, very big. Now, sex work, I know the dangers, of sex work and how dangerous that could be in itself, regardless if it's male sex workers, female sex workers, or trans sex workers. But I kind of feel almost as if, trans sex workers are being targeted. Again, 375 transgender people were killed globally this year. So, Raven M. King, if we could just have maybe a moment of silence for those individuals who are no longer here with us. And we'll start that moment of silence now. Welcome back to Stormy Daez, the podcast. Raven, I'm going to re-ask the question. What do you think is causing the upscale trend in trans-related murders in general, whether it's sex workers or just, trans people in general? I think, and this is just my opinion, I truly think that with the internet being so expanded and broad, there's so many different apps, so many different dating apps, so many different social apps. Like for instance, with Facebook, people are constantly updating their photo. People are constantly updating their location. People are constantly updating what they're doing, what they're planning, where they're going, where they may be going. Do you think that the internet plays a role in the targeting of trans individuals?
Not necessarily. I feel that maybe because, especially with the trans sex work, there are certain people who would feel that's a mockery of femininity. And so they think it's kind of like a joke, or they think that people shouldn't be taken seriously, or that I feel like people are killed. Unfortunately, there are people who wouldn't want to be associated with a trans woman. They would have sex with a trans person, but then later they feel guilt of being exposed, or a fear of, if people find out, what people would think of them. So it's partially, I think, people that wouldn't want to be exposed. And there are some trans people who even try to stunt and kind of not admit to being trans, and they make up a story, oh, I'm on my cycle or this or that. Some people you just cannot play with in that manner. Not everyone's going to be nice.
I 100% agree with that. In reflection to, adult entertainment and sex work and selling sex in exchange for financial property.
Well, it's dehumanizing. If you're in the form of a sexual object, it kind of takes the person away from it, and it's just like a shell of a sexual fantasy.
Yeah, and you had said something about stunting. There are individuals who feel that they are so passable, within the adult entertainment world, sex selling world. There are websites that cater, exclusively for women, and there are websites that cater exclusively for trans, and there are websites that cater exclusively for men. And sometimes trans individuals, they may feel that they're so passable that they promote and sell themselves on websites that are exclusively for women. And, there are men out there who are heterosexual and want women. I've read stories of women being killed in their hotel room, strangled to death. But I also know that there are a group of men who target trans women exclusively because trans women are known to make massive amounts of money. There is a huge demand for trans sex workers. The industry is a lot more lucrative for trans women opposed to genetic females. Trans women definitely do make a higher dollar mark. And there are, from multiple sources whom I've spoke to, who have been victims of attacks and survived, there are men who target trans women exclusively and rob them. Example, they'll call their profile and set up a date. And then upon the date, they would try to rob them. And then sometimes the robbery goes wrong and then they wind up murdered. Um, it's a very sad situation, but
It's very unfortunate.
that is the reality. There are trans people being targeted. Do you think that there are groups, almost like militias out there, who just want to exterminate trans people and maybe even being prompt to terminate trans people? I just want to say this real quick. When I was transitioning, we had clubs and, there were certain, like Lark Street was always known here in where we live. It was always known to be an area where people of LGBT experience, they would, hang out and go for walks or maybe even party. We didn't have the internet the way the younger generation have today, and we weren't as exposed. I really feel that the internet plays a major role in the exposure. I often sometimes feel that when you're transitioning, that's more like a private experience. It's kind of like healthcare. When you go to the doctor and you have your healthcare, that's a private thing between you and your doctor. And when you really think about transitioning, it kind of falls into healthcare. So that's kind of like a private thing. I wonder why trans people today, because in my era, we didn't promote being trans. It was kind of like our private thing, and we privately transitioned and we lived our lives and we blended in. Today, it's like people have to know I am trans and you have to know. Whereas when we transitioned, it was more kind of like, this is my healthcare thing and, it's my private business. Do you think that times have shifted and it's, do you think the exposure could be a link to these horrific murders?
I think that could work for or against it, because like not letting people know you're trans and having sex with them might make them frustrated and very furious. But also, I kind of feel it's more personal because it's a group where there's a lot of hostility towards us. And a lot of people feel very conservative people don't like it, and certain religious people don't like it, and certain populations don't like it. And it's like, I just feel there's a certain hostility involved where people feel it's okay to, out of fear of the unknown, have a certain contempt and hatred where they think diseases are being spread by trans sex workers, or think that we're just not as valuable of people. We don't have a tight network. We don't have a close family, a close religious structure, or things that keep us more secure. I think that's part of it more than the internet.
Okay, that's definitely different. If I could just leave a message to the younger trans people, I would say prioritize your life and think about your safety. Everyone's
And
safety.
how blessed you are to be here, because not all of us have that luxury.
Say that one more time.
Think how happy we are to be here, because not all of us have that luxury, which is why we have this day right now.
I think that's so true. Again, I'm very fortunate to still be here, and I'm still fighting, being a woman of color and admitting to being a woman of trans experience who happens to also be a woman of color. I'm still fighting, for simple things like equal pay. I feel like I have to go even harder than a woman of color just because I have that token trans. And I just want individuals to know, if I don't always promote it or talk about it or wave a flag, it's not because I'm not proud. It's just because I didn't really transition to be transgender. I transitioned to be a woman, and I feel like I'm living that life, and it's not easy. It's very hard. Um, I like to work and I like to produce, and it's hard. It's definitely hard, especially when your employer finds out. It becomes like the consistent consecutive topic. And then when you don't fit their idea of what trans is, um, you know, most people think of trans people as very eccentric and yes, and how you do it. And when you don't fit that and you're just a regular smuggler kind of person, it almost like offends them, like, oh, you're what? And then they start invading your privacy. They start stalking you digitally and having conversations privately about you. It's a scary, scary, scary world today. So anyone listening who may be trans, please, I beg you, be safe. Um, Utilize your network, utilize your support system, utilize your close friends and your close allies, because it is a very dangerous and scary world today. And I want everyone to be safe, especially during these troubling times as we move forward into 2022. A very pivotal, powerful new year is approaching. Um, Everyone, please just be safe. Um, any final words, Misty?
Yeah, I just want to say that after all I went through to sacrifice and become the woman that I am today, the reason why I don't feel so secretive about it is because I don't feel embarrassed, I don't feel ashamed, and I feel proud of everything I went to be where I am right now. So I think it's important for people to have pride and for people to really appreciate life and not take it for granted.
That is excellent, excellent words of choice. Today, we remember some of the souls who left us in 2021. Tiana Alexander, Samuel Edmund Damian Valentine, Bianca Banks, Dominique Jackson, 50 Bands, Alexis Braxton, China Carilialo, Jeffrey Bright, Jenna Franks, Diamond Sanders, Rihanna Pardo, Jada Peterson, Dominique Luscious, Remy Fennell, Tierra Banks, Natalie Smut, Iris Santos, Tiffany Thomas, Kerry Washington, Jahira Delato, whom I knew personally from New York City, Whispering Wind Bears Spirit, Sophie Vasquez, Danica Henson, Serenity Hollis, Oliver Taylor, Thomas Harden, Poe Black, EJ Boykin, Adeline Evans, Taya Ashton, Shai Vanderpump, Tierra Marie Lewis, Miss Coco, Who Johnson, Visaya Monet, Brianna Hamilton, Kier Laprie Cartier, Mel Groves, Royale Poetical Stars, Zoella Martinez, Joe Aker, Jesse Hart, Ricky Otamuro, Markeisha Lawrence, Jenny De Leon, Angel Naira. Those are just a few of the names who have lost their lives, and we just want to say our hearts are with you. I wish everyone safety, peace, and prosperity in this upcoming Thanksgiving year. Before we close, I just want to say, what we are thankful for. I really would like to say, Raven MQ, also known as Misty, I want to say thank you for being a part of this journey with the Stormy Daez podcast and our other products. I want to say thank you for being a friend to the show, a friend to me, and a friend to so many others. And I'm so incredibly proud of you. I'm so incredibly thankful for you. I'm thankful for YouTube. I'm thankful to have our production and be able to share our voice. And if anyone needs me, please don't hesitate to reach out via our social medias. And I'm just so incredibly thankful to be alive today. Misty, is there anything that you are thankful for?
I'm thankful to be here today and every day.
Amen. So incredibly thankful. Thank you for listening. Welcome back to Stormy Days, the podcast, where there's always a storm on the internet. And we say, have a happy, wonderful, amazing Thanksgiving. We give thanks to, just having breath in our bodies, having food on our table, having shelter. We say thank you and we love you. And to everyone, please be safe and enjoy your amazing upcoming holiday. Have a wonderful night.